The way we consume and share news today is largely rooted in social media outlets, a reason why it's crucial to look at what's being discussed online. From the hottest issues to trends for our daily social media minute, we're joined by Erica. Good morning.
Good morning.
Also, I would like to say on the record, hottest issues and trends, yes, but some of these troubles halfway across the world, like whether Michelangelo's David could be pornographic. Now this, Erica is shaking her head just in case you don't have a visual on us. It's tough for me to understand from any level. All right. We'll get to that story in just a moment.
Yep.
But first, starting out at home, South Korea is introducing a new foreigner ID card. There's some color on it.
Yes, this is the first time in 12 years the Ministry of Justice is introducing a new design for a residence card for foreigners staying in South Korea for more than 90 days. And these new ID cards will be, they will start to issue it starting this Saturday.
Okay, so some color in the picture. I actually gave up my residency in the state of California, and even in the United States, my residence card didn't have any color to it. So I thought that was like the general rule of thumb. Things have changed in South Korea. So the residence card was formerly known as an alien registration card. Can you maybe tell us about the changes that have been made beyond just the colors?
Sure. So like you said, one of the major changes is the color. The new residence card will feature a full color photo of the holder of the card. The current design has a black and white photo of the holder. The photo itself is 35% larger than the current version. And instead of the left-hand side, the photo is positioned on the right-hand side of the card. The new version will no longer show the holder's binary gender on the top right-hand corner, marked as either M for male or F for female. Instead, the seventh digit of the holder's registration number will instead indicate that those with either the numbers 5 or 7 is a man, and those with the numbers 6 or 8 is a woman. A QR code will be added to the bottom right of the card so that the holder's information can be read through a digital scanner.
Might as well, right? Everything is digitized these days. That might make things easier. Will those who already have a residence card have to get their card reissued to this new and colorful version?
No, actually. But if they wish to get their hands on the latest version, they can by paying 30,000 won. And those getting their residence card issued in an immigration office in Korea starting in April will have these new ID cards. Foreign residents who have lost their ID cards or have had their visa status changed, they will have the new cards issued as well.
All right. So know that you can actually get the new and updated version, but you don't have to until the residence card expires. And I think you may not have any other options, right?
Right.
All right. Let's move on to our second buzzword of the day. Now, apparently there's one other way to gauge someone's age. Walk into a restaurant, walk into a cafe. If you prefer the kiosk as opposed to human staff, you may be young.
Yeah. Define young.
It's how you feel.
Yeah, right. So what this story is about is, we're talking about kiosks here. Consumers over 40 years of age apparently still prefer to place orders with a human person, despite the increasing number of businesses introducing kiosks. And by businesses, I'm referring to restaurants and cafes. Lotte members conducted a survey recently on more than 1,000 men and women over the age of 10. And of those surveyed, 97.8%, so nearly everybody, said they had ordered from a kiosk before. However, only 60% were satisfied with the experience. We'll get to that in a bit. By age bracket, those in their teens, 20s, and 30s were more or less satisfied with their experience using kiosks. For example, close to 70% of teens said they were happy, 73.5% of those in their 20s And 60.3% in their 30s said they were satisfied with their kiosk experience.
Can I just go neutral and say I'm neither satisfied nor dissatisfied? It's fine for what it is.
Right.
It's not offering me anything particularly fancy. Okay, so it looks like the lower levels of satisfaction were reported among respondents in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Arguably the older group of this bunch, at least.
Yeah. For example, only 33% of those in their 50s and 35% in their 60s said they were satisfied using kiosks at different businesses.
I guess that's kind of self-explanatory. Maybe it's exposure to tech, the inconvenience of adapting in your later years. That's different because increasingly every year I want to learn less, especially when it comes to tech. I am the latest adapter you will ever meet, and therefore I can see why some of the older folks don't necessarily like the kiosk experience. But let's flip that on its head. Then why do the younger generation actually prefer using the kiosks?
There were several answers. One being that they could avoid potentially uncomfortable interactions with staff, and that the entire process of ordering and paying was much quicker, and that they don't have to wait in line to place their order. Pretty simple,
Okay.
right? Those who prefer placing orders with human employees said they can ask questions. So they actually prefer the human interaction, and that they are used to placing orders with a person, and that they can make payments through various means, including gift cards and cash.
Okay, so I mean, maybe it's about convenience. What's more convenient for you beyond the age? As for the difficulties using kiosks, I mean, not all kiosks are equal. Some are just a little bit more difficult to utilize.
Yes, as for the difficulties using kiosks, 45% said they were uncomfortable with people sort of lining up behind them. They didn't like a big line behind them. They didn't feel comfortable.
Okay.
37.3% said they struggled to pay with cash or gift cards, and 31% said they experienced frequent errors with kiosks. I've experienced a few of those myself as well. It's very annoying. The whole point I use a kiosk is to save time. Error, I have to, hail one of the employees to come help me. And, that's kind of counter intuitive, right?
Right. And it defeats the purpose of a kiosk in the first place. You said faster lines. I mean, less conversation with the human staff. But if I can't check those boxes off, what is the point of a kiosk?
You know what? I was recently in Japan on a business trip. I noticed something, about me and the country. One is that there's so many kiosks everywhere here in Seoul. I'm so used to using a kiosk everywhere I go. And I noticed the lack of kiosks in Japan, and everything was so much slower. To get on one of those like high-speed trains looking super modern and, futuristic almost, I had to stand in line to purchase a paper ticket from a human employee. So, yeah, I thought, yeah.
It's most ironic if you think about it, because you're right. You're getting on these very fancy high-speed bullet trains, and yet the process to get the tickets is pretty analog.
Right.
All
And I was
right.
like, are those kiosks?
The frustrations come from both ends of the spectrum. Understand that kiosks are probably here to stay, so I guess I would have to adapt eventually too. All right, let's jump into that final story for the day. So visitors are apparently flocking to see Michelangelo's David. This is following a Florida uproar of whether or not the sculpture could be deemed pornographic.
Yeah, so this has been on the news, on social media for a few days now.
Yeah.
And I was sort of waiting. I was like, is this just, bordering on absurd? Should I even talk about this, anyways, visitors flocked to see Michelangelo's David in Florence just yesterday after that uproar over a Florida school's decision to force the resignation of its principal over some complaints about an art lesson featuring this Renaissance masterpiece. Now, tourists, who many of them were Americans actually on spring break or studying abroad, they were seen posing for selfies in front of this giant marble statue. Now, Galleria de la Academia, which houses the
Mm.
sculpture, reopened yesterday after its weekly Monday closure.
Mm.
And when it did, both tourists, foreign tourists, and locals just could not get over this controversy. Everyone was talking about it.
It's not the first time art has stirred up conversations now of this nature. Both Erica and I are clearly on the same frequency, having a hard time trying to see from which angle this sculpture can be deemed pornographic. It's part of history, a rich one at that. When you talk about Renaissance art, I can't imagine leaving out the maestro, right? All right, so it's a masterpiece, undeniably in its purest form. It's the height of Renaissance sculpture. I just saw it on my honeymoon to Florence, and it was beautiful, breathtaking even. And there were crowds of people who clearly agreed with me.
Right. Visitors at the museum just yesterday, they reacted strongly to the decision made by the Tallahassee Classical School Board to pressure Principal Hope Karaskia to resign last week after an image of the David was shown to a sixth grade art class. Now, the principal, well, former principal of the school, Karaskia, believes the board targeted her after three parents complained because they weren't notified in advance that a nude image would be shown in class. Now, one parent called the iconic statue pornographic. Apparently, the school has a policy requiring parents to be notified in advance about controversial topics being taught. Again, controversial. I don't know what's controversial about David.
I fail to see how this could be a controversial topic. It's Renaissance art, but there is so much outrage over the issue, which is in fact why we decided to share the story in the first place. You're right. It went back and forth for a while. Like, is this necessary? Is this even worth a conversation? Clearly, because it's still going.
That's right. Both Florence's mayor and the museum director, they were incredulous over this whole ruckus. And they have issued invitations for the ousted principal and the school community to come to Florence to see the sculpture for themselves. Now, the controversy wasn't only a topic of conversation in Florence yesterday. For example, on Monday night in Tallahassee, there was a large crowd of people that showed up for a school board meeting with public comment on the issue of the David statue controversy. Apparently lasted over an hour. Some parents and teachers criticized the board and even asked Chairman Barney Bishop to step aside. He refused. 9 students have left the school in protest since the David controversy began. So it's not everybody. You know what I mean?
Right,
it's
right.
a few people.
Maybe a fraction, a tiny fraction of the school. So maybe it's unfair for us to say it's the school policies that failed to meet maybe a universal standard even. Okay.
Yeah. So on Saturday, the mayor of Florence tweeted that mistaking art for pornography is just ridiculous. And he said he plans to invite the ousted school principal to Italy to give her recognition on behalf of the city of Florence, to which replied, I would be absolutely honored.
Maybe things are turning out for the principal. A trip to Italy and a sit down with the mayor of Firenze doesn't sound bad at all. I was weeding through some of the comments that are being made online, and I thought about it for a second. Is this worth sharing? But it was one of the most liked comments on a Korean article talking about this story. 세상에 아픈 사람들이 많다. There are a lot of broken people in this world that can't view art for art. Just a food for thought this morning.
I'm nodding my head.
Yeah. You may make your own judgment call if art has done anything in the course of rich history is to start up conversations. Now, how I feel about it, I had trouble hiding. Not today anyway. Thanks, Erica. I'll see you tomorrow.
Pleasure. See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.